Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from high atop the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Monday, and that means a visit by our favorite Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers. And Don, it was a rough weekend for Indiana football as they take their first loss, but they do so to the number 2 ranked team in the country, but possibly the number 1 team in the country. Talk to certain people, and I've thought that they were the best team in the Big Ten for quite some time, but it wasn't the loss. It was a little bit how they lost. It wasn't as bad as it probably looked, because I went back and I watched the game, and man, it was so close. And when it got turned around, if this play doesn't happen, if that doesn't happen, they hand them 14 points on special teams, which is not something they normally do. And the call when 3rd and 1 and it changes to 3rd and 6, and it's just boy, everything kind of went downhill from that moment, it seemed.
There's no question. It was a very competitive football game in the first half until the drop punt, the punt fumble. When that happened, put the ball, a 23-yard loss, incidentally, on that play. The ball is at the 7-yard line. Ohio State is chomping at their bit to get it in the end zone, which you knew was probably going to happen the way things were falling apart at that juncture. And they did. Coach Signetti was really displeased with the false start call against his team that led up to that situation. And I don't blame him, because I think after you looked at the replay, there was no false start on Indiana's part. But that said, that was a bad call, but Indiana's got to recover from that. And obviously the punt snap, I guess, was a hair off line, but it was certainly catchable, despite the fact that it was raining. And so the ball would have been slick. Those kinds of things happen, but it can't happen in a game like this against a team like that. And their talent level is the best I've seen in a long time. And I say that because I've watched a lot of college football this year to see what kind of talent other teams had as well. And I don't think anybody has better talent than Ohio State.
No, I think they look good. Offense, I think offensively, Indiana is just as good as Ohio State, if not better in certain areas. But Indiana's offensive line, I'm not saying that they failed, but the defensive line of Ohio State, my gosh, Jim Knowles and the defensive coordinator for Ohio State did an incredible job of game planning for this game, I think, is the big difference. They just threw some things at Indiana they hadn't seen, and I'm not sure they were quite ready for it from a speed standpoint. Man, those guys were quick out on the edge, and you can't mimic that in practice. And I think I heard Coach Signetti even mention that. He goes,
right,
they got guys that our scout team doesn't have that kind. And I get that. It makes sense. If you can't mimic it, it's hard to practice against it.
There's no question. Somebody asked me, I don't know, several weeks ago, well, where is Indiana vulnerable? And I said, I don't really think they're vulnerable anywhere except in the total talent perspective of a team. And I said, if you want to make an argument that they're vulnerable someplace, they don't have the total package like Ohio State, Oregon, some of these other programs at this point. That doesn't mean they aren't going to get there, and it doesn't mean that they can't beat you with the maybe a little lesser talent level, because they can. They proved that against several teams this year. So from my perspective, this ball game boiled down to two things. Number one, you can't let them have a ton of momentum, which they got from those two special teams plays at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half with a 79-yard punt return for a touchdown. Those two things killed Indiana. Any momentum that they may have built up, anything. I mean, I'm not saying they couldn't have come back from that against a lesser team. They could have, but this isn't a lesser team. And Ohio State has got all the tools to win a national championship.
Now Indiana has to refocus. They've got a big game this week, Don. Even though it's against a 1-10 team, it's Purdue. It's the bucket game. It's a game that Indiana hasn't been very successful at in the last few years. It's a game that they not only are supposed to win, they have to win, and probably need to win convincingly, to be honest with you, to whether people want to believe it or not, that perception needs to be kind of erased a little bit in the CFP committee's mind. I think you put a little more conviction on what you're doing, and a good performance would go a long way for the Hoosiers this weekend.
Yeah, and here's the thing. This is the bucket game, and Indiana hasn't had the bucket in their possession in the last 3 years. That's the honest to gosh truth, and Indiana needs to get that bucket back. So the only way you get it back is to win. And against a team like Purdue, the only thing they have to play for is the bucket. They are 1-10. They've had 10 straight losses, some of them tough losses. Obviously, this past Saturday was another tough loss for them against Michigan State. They had a chance to win that ball game. They didn't get it done. Their head coach, Ryan Walters, the fan base up there is screaming for his head. He was very emotional after that ball game because he talked about the fact his team has not quit. They're still playing hard. They're still busting their butts in practice. They're doing all the little things. And Walters was quite emotional after that ball game about the fact that he hasn't lost his team, that they're still going to work with hard hats on every single day and going out there and giving it their best shot. If Indiana plays up to its capabilities, they will beat Purdue significantly. But they're going to have to play up to their capabilities to do that, because in rivalry games, you never know what's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. And we've seen, if anybody paid attention to what happened in college football this past weekend,
Right.
you look at the SEC, of all the screaming they've been doing for getting these two lost teams into the college football playoffs, those are not 2 lost teams anymore. When Alabama and A&M and whoever else I'm missing right there all lost to teams with a 500 or worse record to knock themselves out of the college football playoffs. It can happen, man. These conference games are no joke. Part of the reason why the SEC will not go to 9 conference games like the Big Ten plays, which puts the Big Ten at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and look, let's face facts here. Indiana's football team didn't win on Saturday, but they dropped to 10. They're still in that playoff picture. I don't think they'll go much lower. I don't think they'll go lower than that in the CFP ratings when they come out tomorrow night. We'll see. But you never know. And again, Indiana needs to polish off Purdue this coming weekend to confirm that they're going to be in the playoff picture, and they probably need to do it convincingly. But I don't think they have to win by 5 touchdowns or anything like that. They just got to show that they're what people thought they were prior to this Ohio State game, which we know this team is the real deal. There's no question about that.
They need to get back to being Indiana, the Indiana that we saw. And the biggest thing is, boy, the last 2 games, the offensive line has been under a lot of scrutiny because they've given up like 9 sacks in the last 2 games. Of course, they're playing against bigger opponents that are used to having better lines, better overall athletes, and Indiana is still catching up in that area. But that's the good thing about this season. It will help them get there. They're looking at winning 11 games, Don. There's another record that's about to be set if they can get that accomplished.
That's exactly right. This is a program that has had a phenomenal year at this point. Obviously, disappointment on Saturday, but you're going up against what I think is the best team in the country. And I think they'll probably prove that in the Big Ten championship game if they beat Michigan on Saturday, because I'm telling you what now, you do not want to take Michigan lightly. They're starting to play some football again. Their quarterback obviously played much better this past weekend against Northwestern. And of course, they're putting him in a position that they can, they're going to run the football on you and they're going to pound you. And they could control the football enough to make this a very interesting ball game against Ohio State this weekend. So that rivalry battle there is significant, to say the least. And you never know what's going to happen in college football.
No, Michigan, they've secured bowl eligibility at 6-5, but just being bowl eligible for a Michigan team that is the reigning national champion is probably a pretty bitter pill to swallow for a lot of Wolverines fans. But let me tell you what would make all of that go away: a win over Ohio State,
Right.
because all they care, just like you mentioned Purdue, it's the same thing with Michigan. That is their college football playoff this year. Is if they could beat Ohio State, man, that would throw the Big Ten into a little turmoil. It would probably send Penn State to the Big Ten championship. I don't know all the tiebreakers.
Well, I don't either. And I tried to go through that yesterday. I didn't understand it.
Oh, did you have your calculus book out?
I was trying. Well, trust me, I never took calculus.
Me either. That's why I don't know how to do it, Don.
I'm a very like simple math was what I was best at. Simple math, simple,
Yeah.
Not algebra, all this other crap.
The Indiana men's basketball team down in the Bahamas, they are getting ready to start up a tough stretch for them. The Indiana women are playing in the championship game against the University of North Carolina. So the women have had a rough start to the season, but they've had some really nice wins here of late, although they will be without Sydney Parrish, who is out with a knee injury right now.
Yeah, I saw that. They obviously beat Columbia and did it soundly, and then a really, really good win against Baylor. That was an upset. What's her name? Shea Chesky. Yeah. She had a tremendous ball game, 34 points in that contest. Terry's got them playing well again. That's the key. They're in the championship game against North Carolina. I don't know how good North Carolina women are. I just know that they're in the title ball game, so they can't be bad. So it'll be interesting to see how that championship game comes out today. And then the men will be down there playing 3 ball games as well. And this is going to be a tough stretch if Indiana doesn't play up to their capability on that side of the basketball from the men's perspective. And I didn't think they played a great game against North Carolina Greensboro the other night. Obviously shooting 42% in that contest, not good enough. They did enough of what they had to do against North Carolina Greensboro, but that team hung in there with Indiana all night long. I don't think Mike Woodson was pleased with the performance. And I'm not so sure that this team right now is playing their best. I don't think they're playing even close to their best basketball if they go out there and play like they're capable of playing, because they certainly have enough talent.
Absolutely. And they're going to get tested against their possibly weakest part of their game, 3-point shooting defense, because Louisville, with 13 new players, a complete new roster, new coach, they live and die by the 3-point shot. And if a team that does that, boy, if you catch them on the wrong day, it can be a long day.
Well, and their new coach is Pat Kelsey, who has had tremendous success at Winthrop and College of Charleston. Those are lesser programs or mid-major programs, but that man can coach. He proved
James
it.
Madison.
Yeah, he proved it. I mean, he's a good basketball coach. And Rick Bozich was at our football game on Saturday. I sat with him for a couple of minutes. I said, "How's Louisville?" And he said, "They're a lot better than they have been." So that's all you need to know. And if you can't beat Louisville, you're going to have a tough time with West Virginia or Gonzaga, whoever you play in the second ball game. And then Arizona and Providence, I think, got a chance to get to the semifinal in their matchups. And I think both those teams are really, really good. So this is going to be a challenge. And I think it'll tell us a lot about this Indiana basketball program and where it's at here early in the season.
Absolutely. And Don will be here, though, calling. Is there so no coaches show this week? Obviously, they're in the Bahamas already.
No, we do have a coaches show. We have a football coaches show on Wednesday night this week. It's pre-recorded. It'll be pre-recorded today. Coach Signetti will be on that show. It'll be our last talk show with football this year. And that'll be at 7:05 on Wednesday night prior to Thanksgiving Day. And then, of course, we'll have the football game on Saturday. And, of course, Austin Render, who is down with the women's team. He does the play-by-play for the IU ladies. He is down there calling those games with the women right now. He'll get an off day tomorrow, and then he'll start calling the men's basketball games down there Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Great opportunity for him.
Yep. He'll have fun.
Those are some big shoes to step into, people.
Trust me, he's fine. He'll do fine. He'll do fine.
What are your expectations for this Saturday for this Indiana football team?
I think that Indiana will probably end up running over Purdue I don't know if it's going to be in a huge way, but I think they will dominate this football game. I think this team knows what's at stake at this point, and Coach Cignetti has proven to me that he's got his team ready to play every ball game that they played this year. Obviously, the momentum in the game against Ohio State changed dramatically with a couple of huge mistakes and the inability to keep the quarterback clean. And obviously that'll be a factor in this matchup with Purdue. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, they're a 29-point favorite, so not bad coming off of a loss.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And Kurt Cignetti was a little more, I don't want to say subdued because that wasn't the case. After the loss in the presser, he just seemed to take it like a loss and acknowledge that Ohio State was just the better team, that there were some mistakes made, which there were. And it was the noise that he talked about probably more than anything. And that's another thing you can't mimic other than I'm like, you know what? They should have all the players wear their earbuds while you're practicing with music on, listen to Guns N' Roses at peak volume and pumping in crowd noise. That way you can't hear anything, because the noise was apparently one of the biggest factors in the offense's inability to communicate, obviously.
Yeah, that was a problem. There's no question about that. And it'll be interesting to hear his comments after watching the film of the game and seeing what he says in our pre-recorded show on Wednesday night of this week. I think he'll have some nice comments to make in regard to his football team and what they've been able to produce up to this point. But obviously there's a ton of work left to go.
Absolutely. The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Appreciate you, my friend. Have a good one, and we will see you soon.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate it, Jim. See you.
You bet. Don Fischer. Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.